Welcome, everyone, to today's show, the State of Greater Western New York Report. We are going to be having a special guest. He's going to be running for governor of New York State. He's going to be answering your questions and maybe a few of mine, telling us how he envisions the future of New York State to be. He's here on this week's episode of the State of Greater Western New York Report, which is brought to you by... Each week, our community makes history. Each week, you make history. And each week, there's only one source to turn to for the first take on history. You know what that is? Subscribe to the Sentinel right now to discover the history being made in your own backyard.
The Linden Honey Falls Lima Sentinel. More than just your news, it's your history. Welcome, everyone, to this edition of the State of Greater Western New York Report. Join us each episode as we discuss fantastic topics ranging from history to science to the strange and the wonderful, as well as the treasured spirit with which our region has infused America. We challenge you to consider all things Greater Western New York, from our region's very beginnings to how it inspires, how it empowers, and why it is so admired. Here's the host of the State of Greater Western New York Report, Chris Carosa.
Hi there, and welcome, everyone, to today's episode of the State of Greater Western New York Report. I'm Chris Carosa. With me today is Larry Sharpe. Larry is running for the governor of the state of New York, and I'm sure people have questions for what he intends to do, and I'm sure he has some ideas that he'd like to share. Larry, let's start off just with you telling us a little bit about your background and where you're from and maybe how you got interested in politics in the first place.
Well, that might be boring. You sure you want to do that? I'm kidding. I hope a bunch of your audience knows who I am. I hope, because I ran in 2018 and I've been crossing the state ever since. I've crossed all 62 counties the last 5 years, trying to really connect even more with the state and understand what's happening within the state. And I think even more importantly, coming up with real ideas to fix the state. I got involved in doing this in 2017 when I decided I was going to leave New York State, like so many New Yorkers were thinking about, right? New York State being the amazing state that it is, its government is so oppressive that it literally breaks up families. So I was thinking, you know what? I'm done. I'm going to pack up and I'm going to go. And for what I do in my job, I require a large city to be in my area, which is why I live in New York City, right? Large city. So I decided I'm going to head on down south. Maybe North Carolina is what I was thinking. So I'm going to go to North Carolina. I was thinking Charlotte was my idea. And I went down and I realized I could sell my shoebox of a home here and buy a mansion there and get a whole lot more space, pay less taxes, and still be by a large city. And I thought, wow, this sounds great. And instead of me moving, I got angry. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to go back and fix things. I'm not going to accept that my state has become such a... Why has my state's government become such a terrible place? I'm going to go back, I'm going to run for governor, and I'm going to fix it. Chris, in case you didn't notice it, that didn't go as planned. So once I ran in 2018, and I didn't win in 2018, I still was able to gain party status for the Libertarian Party. And when I did that, I then crossed the state again, trying to get local people to win, to make change. And it was working. We had 107 victories in 2019. And with that, there was some change happening. 107 libertarians were elected in New York State in 2019. And then in 2020, the state decided, well, we can't have change. We can't have that. So they decided to change all of the ballot access rules and change the party status rules. And they basically removed my party with a stroke of a pen in 2020. That went away. So now I have to fight yet again to get back on the ballot. And I want to make change. You might say, Larry, why am I doing it as third party? That's another question.
Well, actually, you make me think of a couple of questions or a couple of thoughts. Well, certainly, if you're looking for a cheaper place to come and live, Western New York is certainly probably comparable to what you saw elsewhere. But we'll get to Western New York in a second. I want to focus on statewide matters. First, you bring up a couple of things that really I could see our guests, our audience is now chatting. If you want to chat, by the way, and you're in the audience, go to the chat box, ask a question. I'll refer it over to Larry. But one of the questions we had earlier, someone emailed me when they knew that you were going to be on and they couldn't be part of the live audience. They wanted to know this thing, two things really that you mentioned. First, the state is really aggressively trying to eliminate third parties. And you don't have to be a libertarian to be concerned about. There's other third parties that are concerned about it. Aren't there 4 parties that are allowed to be on the ballot now? Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that correct?
Officially, there are 4 parties. It is the Democratic Party, Republican Party, the Conservative Party, and the Working Families Party. And the problem with the last 2 is because of the way the system works, they're so afraid, they're rarely independent. They tend to just do whatever the 2 big parties say. So there are people in the Conservative Party who would like to actually be conservative, but they're afraid of losing their party status. So they basically just do whatever Republicans say. The Working Families Party, many of them would like to be more, they tend to be more left. They want to be more left, but they can't because they're afraid that they're going to be destroyed. So the system has made it to where these 2 parties have basically become puppet parties. Oh, they'll go away. The other parties who were actually real parties, which were the Green Libertarians, we were actual parties actually out there doing different things, going against the major 2. We've been removed from the ballot.
Wasn't there also an independent party at one point? Or is that long gone?
There was, but yeah, that's
So
gone too. The problem is, and here's the thing to remember: they've changed the rules to where now you have to get 45,000 signatures across New York State in 6 weeks. Now, before it was almost double that with the time, and it was only 15,000, so people could do it. Right now, that means in about 5 weeks, to make sure you get everything taken care of, you have to get about 70,000 signatures. Why 70,000 signatures? Because the major 2 parties, if you are right now listening or watching, and you are a Democrat or Republican, those parties take your campaign donations and they pay people to go into the Board of Elections, go through all the signatures to try to find bad signatures on the intent to throw us off the ballot. If that doesn't work, they will try to sue us off the ballot. They do not want you to have choice. They don't want you to have a voice. So I have to get about 70,000. So I have to get 70,000 signatures in 35 days. That's 2,000 signatures per day. I would ask you, who could do that besides someone who is elite or wealthy? Now, luckily, I already have a system set up. Why? I ran before. My party has affiliates in 30 counties, right? I personally am in a position where I can take off and not work. I don't work now. I just run. I'm also well known relatively across the state. In the last 2 Zogby polls, I poll at 6%. That's massive for a third party. How many third parties have a poll at 6%? It's massive. So I'm known across the state. I'm able to raise money. I raised $500,000 last time I ran. I've already raised 6 figures. It's going to cost me 6 figures. I have literally hundreds of volunteers, and I have an infrastructure. Who else can do that? This game is now set to where only the elites or the very wealthy are going to run. That's it. No one else gets to run anymore in our state. We have to change that.
Right. So getting back to kind of what I was thinking is, what does the Libertarian Party have to do to join the ranks of the other 4 parties? What mark do they have to?
We have to, as I said, get 70,000 signatures within five or 6 weeks, starting April 19th. Once we get that, that just gets us on the ballot. So that sucks up hundreds of my volunteers, 6 figures in dollars, and 6 weeks of my time gone just to get on the ballot. By the way, if you're a Democrat or Republican, you just go, can I be on the ballot? And the elites go, yes. That's it. So all that goes away, and I haven't done one Facebook ad. I haven't done any ads in newspapers. I haven't done paid for gas to travel the state. Nothing. That's just so that I can be on a line so you can sign. Now, once I do that, I now have to get either 130,000 votes or 2% on election day, whichever is higher. So if I get that threshold, then I get to be on the ballot next time and do it all over again.
So
that's what we have to do.
If you looked at how you performed last time, would you be able to meet that threshold this time?
Easily.
Okay.
Easily. So I got 100,000 votes last time.
So what I don't get is, how come the Libertarian Party was not part of the top 4? What did they fail to do that caused them to lose their status as a...
Okay, maybe I wasn't clear. We did. Then they changed the rules, right? So literally, the New York State literally broke its contract with me. New York State in 2018 had a different rule. The rule was get 50,000 votes on a governor line, and you get ballot access. You get a party status for 4 years. That's what they said. I did that. I raised the money. I got the votes, I got the signatures, and then once I got ballot access and party status, my people started to win across New York State and have an actual third party make some actual change. They changed the rules 2 years in and just said, oh, no, the rules have changed. Well, when the rules changed, I lost party status. I didn't do anything wrong. They just literally changed the rules. So, of course, you go, Larry, well, sue them. We did. And the judge literally said, no, don't care. We want to start paying, because that's the new rules coming up here in New York State starting next year. We want to start having taxpayers pay for the elections. And if we have too many parties like this, it's going to be too expensive. So I know you have a First Amendment right to vote and free speech, but it's kind of expensive, so no. So they literally told us, no, it's too expensive. You can't, you don't get to be on the ballot. So they had no problem completely breaking their contract with me, reneging on their rules. So that's how we didn't get it. It wasn't that I didn't do anything bad. I did what I was supposed to do. They changed the rules, which is why I'm at it again. So now I have to do the new rules they made up. Hopefully, once I make these, they won't then decide to make new rules again. I mean, they might. But my hope is we can make such a change that they can't make it to where I can't be on anymore. And one of the things I'm doing is I'm doing a coalition, right? It's not just the Libertarian Party. Also, I have the Forward Party, that's Andrew Yang's party, backing me. And I hope to have Unite backing me coming up here soon. So I'll have 3 parties backing me starting in June. Now, when I've got these parties backing me, we should be able to get as many votes. We should be able to break a hole so big the state can't just close it. And that's my issue. The reason why we have to have a third party, particularly in New York State, it's across the country, but New York State even more. If we don't have a third party, there can't be any change. The Democrats have been running this state for 20 years. If they were going to fix it, they would have. The Republicans have been watching it for 20 years. If they were going to have a plan, they would have had one. The Republicans have no plan. Democrats have bad plans. So now we have a situation where Democrats are the party of bad ideas. The Republicans are the party of no ideas. That's what's happening in New York State now. However, New York State is now 3-1, give or take, Democrat to Republican. So it's really one party rule now. Now, of course, the response is, well, Larry, just vote Republican. Okay, be very forward for my Republican friends who are listening and watching. That's impossible. Again, 3-1. The Republicans have not won a statewide election in this state in 20 years. Nothing. Not senator, not governor, AG, nothing. Third party is the only way, or we keep Democrats in power forever. And if you're a Democrat, you may think that's nice. If you're a Democrat, okay, I'm glad you're a Democrat. Good for you. The problem is you have one party rule. So even if you're a Democrat, you're unhappy.
Well, I think that this has really been interesting, and I apologize for those who are watching live on the audio. The audio is back now, so you should be okay. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back, and we're going to talk about some of Larry's ideas maybe and how they impact Western New York. You're listening to the State of Greater Western New York Report. We'll be right back.
Through the mists of time, nature and man have both created and buried treasures beyond the imagination. With the ages, these riches slowly dissolve into mere myths until they are forever forgotten. But there are those brave souls who tirelessly cling to the truth, ever seeking to discover the undiscovered, to reveal what has always been there, to uncover the hidden gems of a land thought forsaken but loved by millions. "50 Hidden Gems of Greater Western New York. Discover the secrets in your own backyard. Buy your copy now at 50hiddengems.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to the State of Greater Western New York Report. Yes, that's right. This week, we're coming out from the first time from our Studio B location. So you're looking and experiencing something new and different. This is not our primary studio. We'll be going back to that next week. But we're very delighted to have Larry Sharpe with us. And Larry has some interesting ideas about a number of issues. And the very first one I want to talk about, we're going to focus on the Western New York angle of things. Despite you being from generically the New York City area, let's say, you really kind of resonate, it appears, with some of the issues that people have brought up. And I know you did well last time. You said you got 6% on average, but a couple of counties in Western New York actually gave you 9%. So there is some following here at least. And let's go into that. And the very first thing that's probably most on everyone's minds with regards to Western New York is autonomy. The issues that you are experiencing as a member of a third party are very similar to the issues that Western New York is experiencing. They simply don't have
Yep.
say in what they can do. How would you go about changing?
So let me just be clear on some of the data you just brought up. I actually got about 2% of the vote last time I ran, just to be clear. But in certain counties, I think Steuben, I think I got 9%, or counties in that area. I know I got 8, 9, 7% in that area. Certain districts in North Country, I was actually able to get about 24% of the vote within certain districts, not countywide, but certain areas. And one of the reasons why is because I traveled the state and I met people and shook hands and asked questions. So yes, now, so that was 4 years ago. Now I'm polling overall, excuse me, at 6%. So 3 times what I got in 2018. I'm now polling 3 times higher. Just want to be clear on the data that we were. I don't want to act like I got 6% last time.
Sure.
I didn't. So the questions you bring up is autonomy, and I bring it up all the time, right? The reason why a Libertarian Party is the only viable third party is because you don't have to convert to be one of us, right? You can be as liberal or as conservative as you want to be, just don't force your views on others. I want to let Wyoming County be a Wyoming County and let Brooklyn be Brooklyn. That's great. If you live in Wyoming, if you live in Allegheny, there's a lifestyle that you like and that you want. And if you live in Brooklyn or you live in the Bronx, there's a lifestyle that you want. And that's good for you. I'm not about trying to force you to change your lifestyle. I'm just about trying to let you leave others alone. And that's the critical piece. I want counties to be counties. I want school districts to be school districts. And how the state controls it is the state controls it via money. So when you stop that aspect, all of a sudden things are going to change. I want counties to have more control, more money stays within the county, more money stays within their own school districts, less grants come from the state, less federal oversight. I want much more localized control. The reality of it is many people in New York State get upset. They say, the city needs to go away or break off from the city or break off from Albany, whatever the case may be. There are 2 issues to be concerned here. One, it isn't just New York City. It's all the cities. Buffalo is blue, Syracuse is blue, Rochester is blue, New York City is blue. All the cities are blue. So it isn't Western New York versus downstate. It's urban versus rural. So they're all blue. That's how it works. I'm not upset about that. If you like living in a blue city, please live in there. So keep that piece in mind. The most important piece is autonomy, letting cities be cities and counties be counties. So that's step one. But a second piece is we talk about diversity. I hear all the time, diversity, diversity, diversity. I'm in. I love diversity. New York State is one of the most diverse states in the entire country. So then why in the world would we have one size fits all from Albany or New York? And the reality of it is, if there wasn't a one size fits all, most people in Western New York wouldn't care what New York City does, wouldn't care what Albany does. And guess what? You shouldn't. If you want to go there, please go move there and you can care about what New York City does. That's great. Otherwise, what are you worried about? Why are you worried? Because central control is controlling everybody when it shouldn't be. The issue isn't whether you should be more liberal or more conservative. The issue is let people be people.
So that's actually a very, very interesting point. It's kind of off the questions that we're getting right now, but it's a question that I have. Why does Albany and the population base of New York City, why is there this effort for the one size fits all solution? Why don't they just let people be the way they are? What's motivating them to centralize this control?
You have to remember something. They're actually not fixing anything. So they just have to say things and do things and create jobs. Look at what New York State has been doing for the past 20 years. It's been ensuring that we have more centralized control. Why? So now most of the people who are more conservative or right-leaning are leaving the state. which means now if you're a Democrat, you're in charge by default. So I don't have to fix anything. I don't have to do anything. All I have to say is, I'm going to protect you from the evil Republicans, and I win. That happens constantly. Then we gerrymander districts, and we make sure that we have just enough controlled opposition Republicans in charge, just enough so that they can just pretend like it's a two-party system when it's really a one-party system. And then the rest are just Democrats that we select by the elites. If you think I'm making that up, look at what's happened the last three election cycles. The party elites have picked somebody, and then we've already known the outcome. So why do you think people don't vote? This is what I hear all the time. Upstate New Yorkers tell me the same thing all the time. Larry, we can't win. Why are we bothering? All the votes come out of New York City. They outvote us. Okay, that's not true. That's a story that people have been telling you that you've been believing. Remember, in New York City, even though there's 8 million people, about 1/3 aren't born in the country. Another 1/3 aren't born in the city. Most people in New York City can't vote. And if you think I'm making that up, look at the numbers. You rarely get more than 2 million votes out of New York City. That's it. There's 10 million registered voters in New York State. So it's only 20% of the population that's actually voting. If people upstate vote, they could actually have some impact. The reality of it is, in many places in upstate New York, only 1 in 6 vote. You know who almost never votes? Gun owners. They just don't vote. I wish they did. And then when they vote, they do something dumb. They vote Republican or they vote Democrat. You should only be voting Libertarian if you're a gun owner. If you are a gun owner and you care about the Second Amendment and you're not voting Libertarian, you have been fooled. No other party cares about the Second Amendment except us.
So let's talk about something that you mentioned before with regards to schools. There is this fear within, and when I've interviewed local officials, I hear this all the time. They can't buck Albany because if they buck Albany, Albany pulls the purse string. They don't get the money.
So correct. That's how Albany controls.
Right, and you're definitely on board with removing that sort of, I guess, whatever it is, the shackles of finance from whether it's school districts or whatever. However, we are at a situation right now where everything is all in terms of financing the local district. How do you envision a transition from where we are today to more towards what you're thinking of, where the state doesn't really have any control of the local finances?
What we really want to do is create different ways of raising money. That's the number one issue, not through taxation or fines and fees. That's what we're doing now in New York State. So New York State tries to tax. When it can't tax, it creates rules to to get you with fines and fees, and everything becomes more expensive. What I want to create is what's called the NIST, N-Y-S-S-T, the NIST. The NIST is the New York State Social Trust. What does that mean? Going to take a chunk of cash out of New York State's tax base, about $80 million, set it aside so that we can begin this fund. The fund will be an investment fund that usually private capital, permanent capital will put in. It is non-debt, dividend-based fund that will allow people to get dividends without debt. It's a safe place to go because it's considered state money, so there's no capital gains tax on it. So it's a tax haven for private capital. You might go, wait a minute, Larry, that sounds elitist. That sounds like the big guys have been putting their money in it. They will. It is. That's an accurate statement. It seems that way, and it's true. Why? Because once we create the NIST, which will be a separate company, not the government, it'll be run by a separate company like they do in Singapore, like they do in Norway. This example already exists. There's a separate company that runs it, not government, so government can't get its hands on it. We'll raise $900 billion in about 3 to 4 years. As you raise that money will begin to pay for education. So that money will pay for education. And you might say, Larry, that was supposed to happen with the lottery. That's correct. The lottery money was run by the government. So the government just took it and put it into the general fund. Lottery didn't pay for education. I know that story. I was here for that, right? I live in New York most of my life, right? Except when I was in the Marine Corps and overseas. But so I know that story. This is not that. The government doesn't run it. It's a private company with a charter. Now, what happens? When the government pays directly from Albany, it sends a check per student to a district, a flat fee. I'm thinking about $18,000. Goes to each district per student with a $4,000 credit if you want to go to private school or you want to homeschool. What begins to happen? You just get the money. There's no extra grants. There's no extra strings attached. That's just your money. As our New York State Constitution says, you have to pay for it. We pay for it. Now, when that happens, a bunch of administrators go away. There's no need for administrators anymore. The administrators begin to go away. There's still your normal vice principal and principal and people like that, which we still always need. But all the specialized grant writers, all the specialized bean counters, they're not required anymore. The average teacher in New York State makes between $70,000 to $80,000 a year. The average administrator makes over $200,000. So all
So
of a sudden now we have administrators right now who are making $300,000-$400,000 a year. Those begin to go away. As those go away, I'm creating a surplus at the local area. Not just that. Currently in New York State, if you don't spend your money, you lose it. So of course, school districts just spend money because they don't spend it, they lose it. They have to have grant writers. That's how they control the strings. There's an algorithm that the state uses to pay each school district that no one knows what it is. This is why when they lie and say, you've just made me angry, they go, it's an algorithm. No, it is a flat fee. The money follows the kid.
All right, we have time for
control.
We have time for one more question. You'll have to answer it a lot quicker. And this has to do with the Climate Act, especially in the Western New York region, where there are a lot of farmers. They're very concerned about this sudden cutoff of fossil fuel powered vehicles, machines, appliances, even home heating. How do we, and the fear is, and this wasn't necessarily part of it, there was a fear for a while that you couldn't even burn wood to heat your home. How
That's going to happen.
Do you go about changing that when you're governor?
Let me wrap up the education piece real fast and go right into that one. The last piece of education is if you do that, there's no need for school tax. You end school tax, which cuts property tax by about half. When property tax is cut in half, it changes everything across Western New York. Rent stabilize, seniors can stay and spend their pensions here, kids can actually live here. It changes everything. So this is an overall big important thing. That's how I fix that. Now when it comes to this, why in the world we ever mandate ending something by a certain date? That always fails. It never works. We should stop it. Instead, encourage people to do the right thing. That's how you should do it. The example, what we should do, I'm not making this up so you're clear. We should build 3 nuclear power plants in the North Country. People in the North Country want it. They want the jobs. You start building nuclear power plants. You begin to change the system on how this works. And all of a sudden now, it makes sense to have an electric car. It makes sense to have electric everything. It makes sense. And when it makes sense, people will voluntarily do it. If you want to still have your gas-powered car, you can. That's great. I'm not going to force you to not do that. But if I make a situation to where it makes sense to be green, you will. How do we know that? It happens all the time. There are always early adopters. They like the cool thing, and then others follow voluntarily. The iPhone was a joke years ago. Now most people have one. The same thing will happen. Provide a better opportunity, and people will follow because they do.
Well, very, very good, Larry. Thank you for all your answers. And I'm sure we could probably eat up another half hour. I have a list of questions we haven't even gotten to. But again, we're at the time where we have to thank all of our listeners for listening today and for asking the questions that you asked. If you are watching this tape or in our archive, you can be a member of the live audience. It doesn't cost you anything. It's free. Just sign up and you'll get an invitation every Thursday morning with the link so you could be a member of our live studio audience, virtual studio audience, that is. Just go to stateof.greaterwesternnewyork.com and fill out the form, the invitation form, and you'll be able to get that list and be on the next show, be a part of the next show. Larry, once again, thank you very much. Audience, once again, thank you very much. If you haven't seen this live, we're on the Facebook page and YouTube channel every Sunday at 1:30. So just subscribe to those or follow those, and it'll tell you when it's on live. Otherwise, just go to our website.
Though, LarrySharpe.com. You didn't give me a chance to plug myself.
LarrySharpe.com. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you want to do that.
Now let me plug myself. LarrySharpe.com. Policies are there.
You need to have that in the sign behind you, LarrySharpe.com. Or you should have just told me to put it in the little thing below, because everybody knows you're running for governor, but they don't know that. Anyways, Larry, you've been a great guest. Hopefully we'll be able to talk to you again in the future because you got a lot of interesting ideas. And everyone else, we will be seeing you next week on State of Greater Western New York Report. Bye for now.